What should be done with a state governor if he has been turning a blind eye to multi-billion theft for years, persecuting those who honestly tried to prevent the looting of the state, lying and continues to lie tirelessly at least twice in every sentence? What did the Democratic Party of the United States of America do with him? Yes, that's absolutely right. You guessed it. They nominated him for the position of Vice President of the United States. That's exactly what the Democratic Party did in 2024. And now he's in Congress at a hearing, practically being interrogated, squirming in the hot seat, stammering, flinching, blinking, and sniffling. Why does an adult, experienced politician turn into a bundle of nerves when it comes to theft in his state? Why does he literally fall apart live on air, sweating, stammering, unable to answer the simplest questions, mumbling, blinking? This is not a parody. Now you will see what is done in America to thieves who end up being questioned by Congress, where most members of Congress are lawyers, former brilliant prosecutors. They tear him apart for ruining the lives of people who dared to tell the truth. Those who should have been rewarded for their honesty were deprived of their jobs, reputation, and safety. In this video, I'll show you rare footage, how the governor, they pin him against the wall, and honestly, from what I see, you just lose your composure. If you want to see how Congress handles the governor, we've talked many times about how nothing ever happens. Now take a look at the beginning of what's happening and how it's happening. Layer by layer, the confidence, self-control, and sense of impunity of the corrupt official are stripped away. Don't miss this. 3 seconds. It's an amazingly interesting sight. Each member of the Congressional Committee, this is the committee overseeing government actions, has 5 minutes for questioning. Here is the brilliant lawyer and politician Jim Jordan. He is a member of this committee, and in addition, he is also the chairman of the Congressional Judiciary Committee. Listen to him first.
Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Chairman. Governor, why weren't you honest? Why didn't you just tell the truth about the Feeding Our Future program? As I understand it, this program received $3 million in its first year. A couple of years later, it was already receiving $200 million of taxpayers' money. Whistleblowers were raising concerns, as the chairman said. Auditors, too. Everyone was raising concerns. On March 30th, 2021, the payments stopped, and just over a month later, the payments resumed. Why didn't you tell the truth about why the payments were resumed?
Volk Shervan. Well, Chairman, we told you. And Feeding Our Future grew because of the pandemic.
I didn't ask that. I wanted to know why you didn't tell the truth about restarting the payments. They were stopped due to concerns, clearly, or you wouldn't have stopped them. Then you resumed them a month later. What was the reason for resuming the payments?
My understanding was that the agency believed the court had ordered them to make these payments.
And that was a lie, wasn't it? You repeated it. That's what you said. You said the reason you restarted was because the court ordered you to do it, right?
Yes. I don't think that's been settled yet, as far as I know.
Well, I think it is, because the court did something that I've never seen anything like it. They released a statement saying that you were wrong in what you said. This is from the court. It says, Feeding Our Future versus the Minnesota Department of Education. Correction of reports and statements by Governor Tim Walz regarding the rulings issued by the court. Here's what the judge says. Yes, Governor Tim Walz stated in the media that the Department of Education tried to stop payments to FOF because of possible fraud, but Judge Gutman ordered the payments to continue in April 2021. The next sentence is a lie. So you said something that wasn't true. He further states the following. Judge Gutman, the court says this. Judge Gutman never ordered the Department of Education to resume payments to Feeding Our Future in April 2021 or at any other time. So why didn't you tell the truth?
Congressman, the Department of Education's lawyers saw it differently. Both judges are no longer on the bench, and that's the interpretation.
Let me just read the very first sentence. Literally the first 7 words. This isn't some anonymous source talking to the New York Times. This isn't some anonymous source talking to your Minnesota Star Tribune or, let's say, any other of your newspapers. Due to inaccurate statements by the governor, the Ramsey County District Court judge issued and approved the following press release. It's pretty simple. So the court is lying. I won't say, Congressman, but there was an interpretation. Well, someone is lying. Someone is lying because you can't say the court ordered you to resume payments, and then the court says, we didn't order you to resume payments. So either you're lying or the court is lying, and I'm just asking you, which one is it?
I just know that the agency's lawyers believed it was misinterpreted. I would note
That these payments, maybe you were trying to hide behind the court, Governor. Maybe that's why you made the statements you did and why the court had to do something no one had seen before. They issued a press release saying, you're wrong, the governor is wrong. His statements, those are their words, not mine. False. That's the reason.
the lawyers saw it differently, and you know how the court works, Congressman. You can appeal this. I am sure that.
Politics, Governor.
No, it's definitely about caring for our people.
Which Minnesota does better than anyone, but 3 million. The behavioral intervention program grew from 3 million to 400 million in 5 years. The housing stabilization program grew from 2.6 million to 104 million. The integrated community support program grew from 4.6 million to 170 million in 3 years. And it's incredible what's happening, and you're trying to hide behind some fake court order, a court order that never existed. Governor, who is Casey Megan?
I don't know who Casey Megan is.
I'll tell you, Mr. Megan is a Somali American, a fraud investigator in the office of the person next to you, in the Attorney General's office. And here's what he said. Some believed a tough approach to this issue might cause political dissatisfaction among the Somali community, an important voting bloc. Did this have anything to do with the whole fraudulent scheme that was happening in your state, Governor? No, Congressman, no. So now you're saying that Mr. Casey Megan is also lying? You're the only one telling the truth in the whole state. Mr. Megan, a fraud investigator in the Attorney General's office, says this is politics. The court said that you claimed you...
I couldn't speak for Mr. Megan. You asked me a question. I said no when you asked me that question.
Casey Megan said the opposite. So both the court and Casey Megan are wrong and only you are right. Governor, do you know how many people are being prosecuted in your state now?
I don't have those numbers with me.
You don't know. 98 people were accused. And how many of them are Somali Americans?
No, we do not investigate or prosecute people based on nationality or religion.
I think so too, we shouldn't. But Mr. Megan is a Somali American who said that the court, one of the problems was, this is the main electorate, and I want to know, out of the 98 people charged in your state, how many are Somali? No.
I'm not concerned about their nationality.
85% of those accused were Somali Americans.
I deliberately didn't interrupt for all those 5 minutes, and it's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I hope you don't feel sorry for that wimp, Walz. He doesn't evoke any, well, the disgusting liar. He doesn't evoke any sympathy at all. You don't want to feel for him or empathize with him at all. So, here's another interrogation. I'll make this one shorter. Congressman Donalds from Florida.
Mr. Donalds from the state of Florida.
Thank you, Chairman.
Господин Дональдс из штата Флорида.
Thank you, Chairman. Governor Walz, when did you first learn about possible fraud in Minnesota's social programs?
Social programs. In general, we knew about problems with the CCAP program as early as 2012, and in the first days in office, we started to take action, but
As governor, when did you find out?
before I took office.
All right, Governor Walz, former head of the Department of Social Services, Tony Laurie, stated that you were aware of fraud in 2 Department of Social Services programs in early 2019. Is that statement correct? Yes.
As far as I remember, no. I'm not sure what he means.
You don't remember that meeting or that notification? In March 2019, your legal department reported alleged fraud amounting to $5 to $6 million in the Child Care Assistance Program. In April 2019, it was also reported that the Department of Social Services did not have proper integrity controls to combat fraud. Were you aware of these reports?
Not the specific reports, but that's why my office has put forward measures to address them since 2019.
Is it true that your administration was aware of fraud at Feeding Our Future as early as May 2020 based on regular discussions about violations in the program?
I believe that's correct with the agency, the Department of Education, and then going back to the USDA.
Pam, I'll come back. Was your office notified about these fraud allegations?
Not me. Is this being managed internally? That happens every day. So who was actually notified, Governor Walz? The agency does its job, commissioners, and if someone in my office was notified, they inform me. As governor, I make, 50 decisions a day. I've said that I've been doing this job for 12 years. I make more decisions than that, so maybe someone was notified, but the agency is the one that takes action.
May I ask the next question? We have sworn testimony in the Oversight Committee that your former chief of staff was directly notified by these various commissioners about the fraud in Minnesota. That may be the case. So your chief of staff didn't notify you?
I don't remember if he did at that time, but we took action, so based on that, we formed budgets and prepared a package for that legislative session.
Exactly, right on the hot seat. They're asking him, did you know? He says, I don't remember, but we took action. Well, fine, they tell him, your office received these reports. He replies, I make up to 50 decisions a day. They tell him, your chief of staff received these reports. What, he didn't report anything to you, didn't say anything? Walz replies, I don't remember, but our policy is to fight fraud. Their policy is to fight fraud. So either he's really a fool or he's just pretending to be one. And, I'm starting to think he's a fool.
Talk about budgets, Governor Walz. Feeding Our Future. Let's talk about budgets, Governor Walz. The Feeding Our Future program grew from $307,000 in 2018 to $199 million in 2021. Did you notice the Feeding Our Future program's budget increase?
Not exactly, but I know it grew during the pandemic.
Funding for housing stabilization services increased from $27 million in 2021 to $105 million in 2024. Are you aware of this growth, Governor Walz?
No, not exactly, but I know it went up.
Autism centers increased from $24 million in 2019 to $342 million. Are you aware of that?
Not exactly, but yes, we know.
The budget increased. Comprehensive public services grew from $4.6 million in 2021 to $170 million in 2024. Are you aware of that?
Again, not specifically about the numbers.
But that's the budget. Governor Walz, as with any governor, you must submit a budget to legislators annually. If you didn't know about these increases, what was your office doing?
Everything is balanced. My budget is about $72 billion. That's 23 agencies, 6 million people.
Florida's budget is $115 billion, sir. But what were you doing if you see program growth amid allegations of fraud in your state?
Measures have been taken on them since 2019 if it's CCAP.
Describe the actions taken in 2019.
Of course. In 2019, I will move on to the first steps in helping children.
And here is another member of Congress.
And the criminal investigation, which I want to move on to since I have little time, the way America sees it, Governor Walz, sir, with all due respect, is that this money just kept coming in. There was a high awareness of this waste, fraud, abuse, and theft, even at the level of organized crime. And it seemed like it was being swept under the rug, and no one stopped the flow of this money, and the money disappeared. It was transferred abroad. Attorney General Ellison, in your opening statement, you said, or rather claimed, that your office has direct jurisdiction exclusively over Medicaid fraud. Did you really say that in your opening statement? Okay, but you seem to imply that you don't have, so to speak, criminal authority. But you do have it, don't you? According to your own law, you have the authority if the district attorney asks you to get involved. Or if the governor asks you to get involved, then your agency can lead any criminal investigation, especially if you have certain personnel and the appropriate capabilities in your agency, since it operates at the state level to investigate organized crime. Isn't that good? So, you have the authority to lead your state's efforts in responding to this large-scale statewide healthcare fraud where government money was stolen on a very, very large, unprecedented scale in your state. You are leading this work for the state of Minnesota. You are handling it. You are in charge of it. You are in charge of this case. We are leading the fight against Medicaid fraud in Minnesota. This is not about Medicaid fraud. You are.
He is asked, you, your office, were you involved in these crimes? And the Attorney General, who, by the way, is actually a participant in this whole corrupt scheme, answers, we are monitoring the situation very closely. He's as much a liar as the governor.
Don't hide behind that. Don't hide behind that. You have all the authority to prosecute anything the governor asks you to do. And this case is very serious. I'm giving you the opportunity, sir. You are leading the criminal investigation of this large-scale fraud that has affected the entire healthcare sector of the state of Minnesota, or not. We are investigating according to the law. You're not showing leadership qualities. You're not showing leadership qualities.
Again and again, he doesn't respond.
I must say, Mr. Chairman, that the Attorney General of Minnesota should resign.
Personally, I think he urgently needs to go to prison, and specifically to a Somali prison. In Somali, not in America. All this is happening in Congress, so it will go to the Department of Justice as grounds for opening a criminal case against the leadership of the state of Minnesota.
Chair recognizes Dr. Fox.
The floor is given to Dr. Fox from Northern Karabakh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank our witnesses for being here. Governor, you reminded people that you were here last June. At that time, I reminded you that the Feeding Our Future scam made Minnesota the epicenter of the largest COVID-19 fraud scheme in the country. $250 million in federal taxpayer funds were taken from hungry children. And as the FBI noted, they were, I quote, redirected to luxury cars and an extravagant lifestyle. While families were struggling,
This is North Carolina Representative Virginia Fox, a very sharp and knowledgeable lawyer.
You assured me then that you wholeheartedly support the federal government's efforts to hold those responsible accountable. I appreciate your intentions, but a person's actions speak louder than their words. Governor Walz, when exactly did you first become aware of the fraud in the Feeding Our Future program?
So last year, before the scandal reached its peak, Walz had already been accused in Congress, and there were a number of questions. He stated that he is fighting with all his might against any instances of fraud. Well, tell us, Virginia says to him, how exactly did you fight?
In September 2024, you knew about the Feeding Our Future fraud and how your administration was handling it, right? Yes or no?
In 2024, yes, by that time we had already put people in jail and conducted a thorough investigation.
This committee has testimony that the Minnesota Department of Education informed your office about the Feeding Our Future draft lawsuit and the ban on destroying documents on April 28, 2020. Let me refresh your memory. Is that correct?
I can't comment on that.
And if that's all right, that was April 2020. That means Feeding Our Future received a total of more than $200 million in federal funds after you and your administration became aware of concerns about fraud. Why didn't you stop sending money to Feeding Our Future as soon as those concerns arose?
A very specific question. You found out in 2020 that the organization you were sending money to was stealing it on a massive scale. After that, you transferred another $220 million to this organization, knowing that they were stealing almost all of it. Explain why.
Congressman is following the program. We notified.
The congressman is following the program. We notified the USDA during the first term of the Trump administration. We notified them too, because this is a program managed by the USDA.
But after I saw how they handled Feeding Our Future and its $250 million fraud, it was no surprise to find out that even more staggering amounts of fraud, estimated up to $9 billion, were uncovered in the Child Care Assistance Program, Minnesota's Medicaid program, and other programs. How could you allow such large-scale fraudulent schemes in your state?
So, after they had already been warned several times that Somalis were stealing in huge amounts, the governor and his party increased the flow of money that Somalis were receiving from the government. They didn't just increase it, they made it 10 times bigger.
Chair now recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
The chair recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for coming today. Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison, you have led one of the worst government fraud scandals in American history. This was money intended to feed hungry children, help children with autism, provide food, housing, and health care for those in need, and much more. You both allowed billions of these American taxpayers' dollars to be looted and stolen. You knew this was happening, chose to do nothing about it, and in some cases even enabled it. Attorney General Ellison, you even benefited from this fraud by accepting campaign donations from these Somalis after you promised to help stop the investigation against them. I find your behavior disgusting. My first question. This morning, I think I'll start by addressing Governor Walz, and hopefully you've learned something from our previous hearings together in the Oversight and Accountability Committee. Have you learned anything since then? I understood. If I stay silent, 2 of my people will die. Congresswoman Governor Walz, what is a woman? You have learned that lesson. You know what a woman is? I'm the governor of Minnesota, not here to support your obsession. I was taught logic. If you can't define a woman, you definitely can't. You can't define what fraud is if you can't even define what a woman is. You can't define fraud. How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota? You don't think. You don't know. You don't know, Governor. I don't have those numbers, Congresswoman. All right. Did you prepare for the hearing today? I think you understand I take Congress seriously. And you saw the numbers about autism fraud in Minnesota. So today we're going to do some Minnesota math with you. All right? Are you ready? How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2017? I wasn't the governor. How much? All right. Sure. Okay. Didn't you just say you prepared for today's hearing? $1 million, okay? A quick Google search or your AI could show that $1 million was spent. How much was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2024? I don't have the number in front of me. Are you the governor in 2024? I was, but I'm not the head. So your previous excuse was that you didn't know the autism numbers for 2017 because you weren't the governor. And today, as the governor, you can't name the numbers for 2024. And you still claim that you prepared in advance for today's hearing. That's unbelievable. $343 million were spent in 2024. What is the percentage increase from $1 million to $343 million? What is the percentage increase? I'm not your prop. Tell me. So, are you the governor of Minnesota or not? All right. When I become the governor of South Carolina, you can be absolutely sure that I will know the math. And the math is this. An increase of 34,200%, a 343-fold increase compared to what it was during that period. Do you know the number of children in Minnesota? I know that Minnesota made it into the top 3 states for children. What is the total population of the state of Minnesota? Minnesota. Got it. What is the total child population in the state of Minnesota?
You are the governor of the state. I know that 400,000 were cut from healthcare last week from your deductions.
Minnesota. Are you the governor of Minnesota?
That's me.
You don't know how many children live in Minnesota? No.
I don't have a specific number. It's 5.7 million. That's your entire population. What age are you referring to? Oh, from 0 to 5, from 0 to 19.
1 point. You have about 1 to 2 million children in Minnesota. I'm not even the governor of South Carolina. The population of South Carolina is about 5 million. We have about 1.1 million children under 18 in my home state of South Carolina. Okay? As a governor, I expect you to know this information. Thank God you're not the Vice President of the United States. Do you know approximately how many children in Minnesota have autism or a spectrum disorder?
No, I don't have that number.
All right. Well, if we take the CDC data that about 1 in 36 children are on the spectrum, we're talking about approximately 33,000 children in South Carolina. That's about 30. Nash Yaksiri Yatroy.
4,000
or so. What is that? Do you know how much that is per child in terms of expenses in fraud for autistic children in Minnesota?
I'm not your cover. Go ahead, tell us.
This isn't Minnesota math. Is this just a cover-up? This is math. We're talking about fraud.
Minnesota is leading. Where is South Carolina?
We're talking about money. We're talking about...
How do South Carolina's children rank in health?
Those are my questions for you, not the other way around. Unless we're debating, which we're not.
If it's about the governorship?
That's right. But I'm asking you questions about the governorship of Minnesota, and you can't answer. It's basic math, and you can't even respond. You don't care at all about the children in Minnesota.
They're nearly number 1 in everything. The children are fed and have housing.
The children are healthy. You ignore autistic kids.
Who receive...
They need services in Minnesota. No, Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor.
Don't you think he's in a state of shock? Don't you think he looks like both a fool and a scoundrel at the same time? And that's the guy the Democrats wanted to shove on us as vice president.
This is our top representative, Representative Emmer from Minnesota. The Majority Whip, Representative Emmer from Minnesota. Thank you, Chairman Comer, as well as Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison for appearing before the committee today. Gentlemen, let's see if we can come to an agreement. Let's agree on at least one thing today. Today's hearing is called Oversight of Fraud and Misuse of Federal Funds in Minnesota. Can we agree that this fraud is a serious matter, Governor Walz? Yes or no? Can we agree on that? Yes, fraud is serious. Thank you. Because it's interesting that you and I agree this is a serious matter, considering that the person sitting next to you, your Attorney General Keith Ellison, just 2 months ago said, and I quote, "This is a political issue, it's not serious." End quote. Attorney General Ellison, is there an organized crime group operating in Minnesota? I'll answer, sir. Governor Walz believes an active criminal network operates in our state. In October, the governor stated, and I quote, "There is an organized crime group operating in Minnesota. I think this has been going on for many years." Next, Mr. Ellison, like millions of Americans, I am seriously concerned about your alleged connections to Somali fraudsters who were later charged and convicted of federal crimes. I'm sure you know that more than 90% of those accused in the Feeding Our Future fraud case are Somali. In fact, you are personally acquainted with these people. There is a 54-minute audio recording of your meeting with these criminals in December 2021, and during your meeting, they complained to you about increased scrutiny of their nonprofit organizations, and you told them, I quote, "Of course, I'm here to help. This is available online." Anyone can hear you saying this. Since then, you claim that you didn't know about their crimes as part of the $250 million Feeding Our Future scheme, the largest pandemic fraud case in the country. But just a few weeks after your meeting in December 2021, the FBI conducted searches that you would never have requested as part of the Feeding Our Future fraud investigation. Now let's fast forward to September 2022. 10 months after your meeting with the Somali fraudsters, your office issued a press release stating, quote, "Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison and his office have been actively working for 2 years to hold Feeding Our Future accountable," end quote. So, according to your office, sir, you have been deeply involved in the Feeding Our Future case since September 2020. It seems you are claiming that at the time of your controversial meeting with the Somali fraudsters, you were already aware of the suspicions of fraud. When you had that meeting in December 2021, sir, were you aware of the long-standing FBI investigation into Feeding Our Future, yes or no?
Subtitles, Mr. Chairman, Representative Emmer.
I reclaim my time. When did you personally learn about the FBI investigation? That's all I'm asking.
Representative Emmer, as you know, I have addressed this issue many times.
And they can't answer that. They contradict themselves. They can't explain their previous statements. I won't bore you any longer, ladies and gentlemen, with listening to these lies and attempts to wriggle out. Now all they have left is hope for a miracle. Maybe something will happen and people will forget about them. So, about the hearings, it's clear that the governor and the attorney general are being accused of covering up a multi-billion, fraud scheme, a money-grabbing scheme. I don't even know how to define it. So, in addition, they're being accused of targeting those who came to report this fraud and kept increasing the flow of money going to the thieves. To the thieves. They didn't stop it, didn't investigate, didn't put an end to it. They oppressed those who tried to stop it and kept ramping things up. Congressional hearings allow the case to be referred to the U.S. Department of Justice. Here, Walz reminded me of an old Soviet joke. So, like at a party meeting, the chairman is giving a speech. Today we're discussing Semyon Stepanovich Kuskin. He, as you know, beats his wife on Fridays. On Thursdays. He causes trouble, drinks like a fish, is a scoundrel, a liar, uses foul language, sleeps at work, and doesn't wash for weeks. And we propose to nominate him as a member of the local committee. Not even for all that, but because he is a true Soviet man. Well, maybe not exactly like that, but about being a true Soviet man, that's correct. That's exactly what was said. The same thing happened in 1924 when he was nominated as a true Democrat for Vice President of the United States of America. And you know what's the scariest part of this story? It's not that billions of dollars were stolen from the aid program in Minnesota. Of course, that's terrible, right? But what's really scary is that all of this went on for years under the slogans of kindness, caring for the poor, and social justice. To the applause of those who have lost today, he keeps teaching the whole country how to live right and who to vote for. For many years, we were told that these people are the moral compass of America, that they are the bright side of politics, fighting for children, for migrants, for the disadvantaged. And today we see what they were actually doing, what they were really involved in. Under them, huge sums were siphoned from Americans' pockets, and the scheme is coming to an end. They covered it up with pretty words and accusations of racism and hatred toward anyone who tried to ask uncomfortable questions. You ask a question, where is the money going? You're a racist, you're an Islamophobe, or something like that, right? Let's call things by their proper names. The people who were supposed to protect the law and taxpayers, the governor, the attorney general, the party bosses, didn't just fail to notice this, they knew about it. They were warned. They were brought documents. They were shown the scheme. And they chose not to stop the thieves, but to cover for them. Because those are their voters, their donors, their political capital. I bet some of that money flowed into their election campaigns without stopping. This isn't negligence. No, this is a protection racket cartel. When you're told under oath that government money was going to gangsters, that some of those funds were flowing abroad, what's honest about that? Whistleblowers faced pressure and retaliation, while the authorities responded with silence and excuses. It looks like complicity, like they're just calling it a little mistake, a management error. Ha ha ha. Oops, I didn't notice. After these hearings, they will never again be just progressive leaders from Minnesota. Now another phrase will forever follow their names. Those under whom billions were stolen from children, from the poor, from taxpayers, and they did nothing about it. In fact, quite the opposite. Now, every time they speak, you can interrupt them with just one question. Where were you all these years while money was being stolen from aid programs under your watch? And the higher they climb the party ladder, the deeper their fall will be now. The Democratic Party quickly turns toxic people into expendable material. Today, they're still being defended on social media and the right TV channels, but tomorrow those same people will pretend they never knew them. Those were isolated excesses at the local level, and we despise them, we cut them off simply because we found out about it. They'll start to be quietly or loudly pushed out of key committees, cut off from financial flows, not allowed to appear where real decisions are made. From being leaders, they will turn into a human shield that the party will put under fire to divert attention from itself, to make it look like it's just an isolated incident. If their internal polls show that this politician's name or these politicians' names are dragging the ratings down, they'll find a young, promising replacement, and then we'll see a classic scene. The one who was waving slogans about justice and fairness yesterday will be humiliated tomorrow, having to explain to their voters why their own bureau, their own Democrats, have turned against them. Every new document, every new story about fraud is another step toward a political grave. Sometimes without a trial, without prison, sometimes I really hope that in this case there will be both a trial and prison. Just a silent, slow, humiliating political suicide. But the story doesn't end with losing the election. When it comes to tens of billions in federal money, auditors, controllers, civil lawsuits get involved, and then they spend years and millions of their own money trying to appeal to the public, begging for help, and so on. Yeah. What do they need the money for? For lawyers trying to fight off demands to return the funds, compensate for damages, explaining under oath why their signatures are on documents that open the doors to these looters of social programs. The scariest turn is when the investigation stops being about the system and becomes about you personally, Mr. Governor, and about you personally, Mr. Attorney General, when investigators find letters, meetings, phone calls, where it's clear that you weren't just sitting idly by, but were actively helping to keep the money flowing, pressuring honest officials, turning a blind eye to the evidence. That's when it starts to sound frightening to Americans. In one word, conspiracy. Obstruction of justice, abuse of power. But conspiracy, that's a whole different level. This is no longer a talk show, gentlemen. Next comes the grand jury. An indictment, a trial. Not so fast, no, not tomorrow. But it's moving forward and will reach the person in the black robe and the verdict. And in that courtroom, slogans about social justice don't work anymore. There, the law works. Even if one judge can be pressured or persuaded or something like that, the case is immediately transferred to the appellate court, and it won't work there. Now about how this affects the Democratic Party of Minnesota first. This is not the only mistake. This is a systemic failure of that very progressive showcase that the Democrats have been proud of for so many years. All their beautiful speeches about caring for the poor, helping children, and supporting migrants are now shattered by one harsh fact. Under their control, these programs have turned into an ATM for scammers. For the Republicans, this is simply a gift. What you might call a gift-wrapped case. Case not as in a briefcase, but as in a court case. Every time the Democrats start talking about expanding social programs, they'll be reminded of Minnesota, where the expansion of aid turned out to be an expansion of wallets for those who learned to use political armor and accusations of racism, sexism, Islamophobia, I don't know what else, to cover up their, well, let's say predatory greed. Inside the state, this is a blow to the entire network of local democratic structures, from activists to party officials. Everyone who stayed silent was afraid of offending the right group of voters, turned a blind eye to obvious issues. In the eyes of ordinary people, it becomes part of the scheme. But thank God it doesn't stop there. Psychology works differently. The question is this: is it a mystical Minnesota coincidence? A coincidence, exactly. Yes, or is it an operating model by the U.S. Democratic Party? When money under the slogan of social justice turns into a feeding trough, every new scandal involving fraud in social and medical programs that comes up across the country will now be compared to Minnesota. California is next on the horizon for us. And the longer national Democratic leaders keep defending these people, making up excuses, the more they will tie the Democratic Party brand to that word. Fraud, cover-up, double standards. Look, how can we take part in this, help bring justice to America? The algorithms of major platforms are very simple. They don't promote truth or lies. They promote what people react to. If you've watched up to this point, it means you care about this topic. But for the system, that's not enough. 3 things matter to it: subscription, like, and the bell. Subscription says, this channel interests me. A like says this particular video is worth showing to others, and the bell is a separate, most powerful signal. When you click the bell and turn on all notifications, you're literally telling the platform, this is the voice I want to listen to. This is the type of content that should be shown not only to me, but also to people who are like me. And then this video starts appearing in the recommendations of those who are still living in a different information world, who have never even heard about what happened in Minnesota, and still believe that up there everyone is squeaky clean, and all the talk about corruption is, of course, an exaggeration. That's why I'm asking you, not out of habit, but consciously, if you want investigations like this and this kind of perspective on politics not to drown in the flow of polished, sanitized news, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell. Today, it's just 3 clicks of the mouse, ladies and gentlemen, and that's it. But it's exactly because of these clicks that media power is gathered, which tomorrow could decide who will run your country. People who covered up for thieves, or those who at least aren't afraid to talk about it out loud. You know, with all, despite the darkness of this story, one important thing shouldn't be overlooked. The fact that this came to light, that these people were exposed and made to answer, means the system is still alive, and society is still capable of defending itself. Every time you don't stay silent, when you share this information, when you subscribe, like, or click the bell, you are literally helping justice. You make it so that lies and corruption don't hide in silence, and the truth becomes louder. And the more of us there are, those who are not afraid to face reality and speak about it openly, the fewer chances there are for those who thought they could steal with impunity under beautiful slogans. Thank you. Next. Ladies and gentlemen, draw your own conclusions. Until next time.